Okay, so the format for this panel, we have now probably about 50 minutes. So we would like to combine, first of all, listening to their expertise, their experiences. We have some questions for them. We will hear from different sectors, different actors, private sector, civil society sector, and also we'll have the opportunity to learn more about the responsible use of artificial intelligence in Cambodia. And then Merl will also be able to provide more a regional perspective on AI in the Asia Pacific. So then we hope to open the floor for questions and answers. We understand that this can be sort of a complex topic, especially if it is the first time that you hear the term responsible use of artificial intelligence. So I would definitely encourage you not to be shy and to ask your questions. There are no right or wrong questions, and I'm sure that our panelists will do their best to explain such a complex topic in plain English in a way that we can understand the key ideas, and also we feel comfortable by asking as many questions as possible. And this is precisely the first question that I have for you both. Could you tell us, or could you tell the audience, what does it mean to use artificial intelligence responsibly? And then from the perspective of Cambodia, where does Cambodia stand in this process of adopting artificial intelligence and using it responsibly? And then from Merl, I would like to hear the same, an answer on the same topic, but with a regional perspective. So, Umoy, you want to go first?
Thank you so much, Dr. Marx. Hello again, everyone. Hello? Are you ready for the question to us? You have a lot of questions? Very good. So it is very important for the generation of AI, especially during this time beings. To us, use artificial intelligence responsibly. It's more like about how to balance between its benefit and implication for the future. That include thoughtful about ethics, fairness, sustainable regulation, and human-centric, which require everyone who involved in the process of AI development application, management, government to work together, such as development and researchers need to develop application that provide sustainability and respond very well to human being. Government require a strong regulation in order to make sure that AI usage are fully governed and provide a lot of benefit to people, not to provide any negative impact. To us as a user, have to be well informed of all the data will be fed and what kind of information to be captured by AI in order for further using. As you know, AI is just like a baby, it's just like a kid. Whatever you give them, whatever you share, whatever you ask will be captured, will be stored. If those information won't be provided correctly, that will be something possibly happen to the future. Another important aspect which involve on use artificial intelligence responsibilities include researchers and management. How to make sure the development of AI is not biased. For example, AI is innovated by westernized. That is why a lot of data, information are fed from those countries, not yet developing country and the country at southern. This is something that we need to consider about. So everybody who involved in the process of AI development, AI using, regulation, from government to developer, researcher, user, have to make sure that all AI systems are built, are used, respond well to human being, to regulation, to fairness, inclusive, and bring no harm to people in the future. Discussing about this point, Cambodia have actively working by collaborating with development partner that includes AVI. If you can see that one of think tank who actively discuss and public document about AI. We also have support from LNK.bio. One of another key development partner who play very important role is Asia Center. Dr. Marc is here. Cambodia starting by assigning one representative from MPTC to join AI development and adopt with UNESCO, including policy of AI for ASEAN as a whole. Second thing is education. The government of Cambodia and educators working together in order to provide AI education to high school students and university students to be AI engineer, to understand about AI and use it effectively. More than that, public sector also develop a lot of AI application. If you can see, there are some schools like NPIT, the school like ADITI have just deployed some AI application. We have a lot of researchers who have been working together in order to find and provide input for AI governance, AI regulation, and how to use AI ethically, especially responsibly. This is the improvement and the process of adaptation, especially the stand of Cambodia for AI. More than that, Cambodia try to align the regulation from Asian country. This is something that we can see nowadays, especially our Cambodian people. You as a student, SME owner, management are now using AIs just every day for your work. This is the movement, the evolving of AI in Cambodia. Yeah.
Thank you. Just before you provide your insights, Merl, I just wanted to recap a bit on some of the key points that Umoy just made. I really like the way you put it. AI is like a baby, but I think that this baby is growing up very, very, very quickly and very rapidly. And it is important that this baby learns how to find good balance between, you know, the opportunities of artificial intelligence, but also the implications that it brings with higher use of this kind of software and tools. And for that, obviously, strong regulations that give opportunities to maximize the opportunities of AI are important, but in a way that also respect people's fundamental freedoms. And for that, education, it's one of the points that you just made. I think it's also very, very critical because as it has been mentioned earlier, higher adoption rates of technology and artificial intelligence do not necessarily mean that we are using it responsibly. So, Merl, the same question for you. What does it mean to use artificial intelligence responsibly, and what are your views on this topic, more with a regional perspective in the Asia Pacific?
Yes, thanks, Mark. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the organizers for inviting me to the Cambodia ICT camp. It's my first time in Cambodia. I really like the energy of everybody, the smiles and all of that. So thank you for having me again. But getting into the topic, so just in terms of defining, like Mark said, like there's a lot of terms these days flying around. Is this a complex topic? I'd like to say it can be simplified a great deal. Responsible AI, simply, at least how we think about it, means like two things. So as Mark said, most of us have used AI in some form over even the past week. So how do we make sure that the benefits of AI are properly and fairly distributed, equitably distributed? Everybody benefits from AI, so that's one part of responsible artificial intelligence. The other part is, as you know, there are harms of using AI. So hopefully you know that you probably should not be using confidential information, for example, with ChatGPT. And ChatGPT sometimes can hallucinate and tell you things that are not true. So there are clearly bad ways of using AI. So how do we make sure we have proper systems in place so the downsides and the risks of AI are reduced and mitigated? So thinking about responsible AI in those two terms usually helps. How do you make sure benefits are fairly and equitably distributed and enjoyed by everybody? And how do you make sure the risks are reduced and minimized? So when it comes to responsible AI, so I almost want to take a step back and just all of us to think about why do we need responsible AI. One is AI almost intersects with a lot of human rights. So AI has implications on your data, which means your implications on privacy. AI systems can be used to make critical decisions in the public sector. So are you unfairly treated in some of those scenarios? So having proper guardrails around that is really crucial. And there's also a system of, if something goes bad, do you have a process of for remedy to making sure that whatever the harm that you went through, you have a mechanism of being compensated for. So there are a lot of aspects like that when it comes to responsible AI. And there are another point I want to emphasize is that responsible AI is not about just regulation. Yes, regulation is one important part of it, but just because you have an AI law or AI regulation does not mean that everything that is related to responsible AI is in place. So responsible AI is broadly thinking about how human rights are protected when it comes to the deployment of artificial intelligence. For example, in 2021, UNESCO came up with a series of recommendations on ethics of artificial intelligence. And there are different frameworks that try to mimic what's in there and put that into practice. So the Global Index on Responsible AI that Marc talked about is one such tool. And Cambodia has also been a part of it. I'll get to some of the interesting results in a bit. But what it tries to do is it looks at 19 areas which has implications, broad societal implications for AI, and it tries to measure how different countries in the world have made progress on it. It looks at policies and regulations, yes, but then it also looks at what is the civil society doing, what is the private sector doing, what is the academia doing. So in 19 of these areas, so it has like things as different as gender equality, children's rights, data protection. So there are so many, but across these areas, what's the entire ecosystem of actors throughout the chain of AI? How are they doing things? So so in terms of results, so the Asian region as a whole is, I would say, doing fairly well. So out of 138 countries, you can look it up, by the way. There's a website called Global Index on Responsible AI. You can visit and see the results for yourself. But Cambodia sits interestingly right above Sri Lanka. That was really interesting for me. I think at 71 out of 138 countries. And the region is doing fairly well as well. So Singapore, as you would expect, is at the top, and then followed by Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Cambodia, Indonesia. So there's a whole bunch of countries in the top half of the index, which means there's things to be excited and to look forward to, because there's this the concept of responsible AI is understood in the region. So that's I think the initial remarks that I can share, Marc.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's good that you end your intervention with this positive note on where Cambodia stands in this ranking. I don't want to put you on the spot now, but which is the first country not in the Asia Pacific, but globally?
Country at the top?
Yes.
That would be the Netherlands.
The Netherlands is number one. Okay,
yeah.
Good. So I was taking a look at the report over the last couple of weeks, and I definitely encourage all of you to read it. So you touched upon a very critical issue, which is we are all aware of the opportunities of artificial intelligence, or at least we think that we are aware, but we tend to maybe speak less about the harms of using artificial intelligence. Sometimes the harms that we are causing intentionally, and more often than not, about the harms that we are causing without being aware of this, precisely because maybe we are lacking some of the tools and the skills and the knowledge to use artificial intelligence responsibly. So here, as you mentioned, the intersection between artificial intelligence and human rights is extremely critical, and by extension, the need to have proper systems to make sure that we are using it responsibly, and in case that something fails along the way, that we have the proper tools to address this failure. So based on this, and I'm asking maybe Merl first, since you touched upon this topic, in this context, what are the key priorities that different actors, civil society organizations, then Umoy can talk about the private sector, but maybe you can even mention governments. What are the key priorities that these different actors should consider for the responsible use and artificial intelligence, and more critically, how can they implement all these strategies and priorities?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I think like it all starts with having a basic understanding and awareness of both artificial intelligence, but the risks and associated implications for human rights. Because as you spoke about earlier, so education and capacity building becomes a fundamental aspect. Because some of the more ICT savvy, tech savvy people might know about artificial intelligence, but I think there are large pockets, large groups of people in our countries, in our parts of the world, who are still not even aware of what AI can do, let alone how AI can be harmful. So building a base layer of understanding of AI, both within the public and different groups of actors. So even within the public sector, before they use artificial intelligence, they should have a first layer of understanding what are the use cases AI can be used meaningfully for, because there's a lot of excitement and there's a lot of belief that AI can solve everything, which should not be the case. We should use AI responsibly and with caution, and there are legitimate use cases. Say, for example, in health, there's like a long history of artificial intelligence being able to help diagnose certain conditions and help people do screenings for understanding like rare diseases and different kinds of diseases. So within the health systems, like these technologies can be used responsibly, but how do you make sure that when it does something wrong, are you able to detect that? What are your mechanisms for like safeguards? So having a basic understanding of how AI works and the risk and downsides of AI becomes the key. And just adding on to like the part about like the public sector use of AI, with this interest around AI, there's a tendency to like quickly recruit a developed system without thinking things through. So making sure both the capacity is there, then maybe having guidelines on procuring AI. So you know there are general procurement guidelines for governments, but what does that mean for artificial intelligence? Do you need additional guidelines before you procure AI systems? And do governments develop these things internally? Sometimes they might not have the capacity. Then do you go out to the market and buy it off the shelf, or work with an external partner to develop these things? So having proper guidelines, especially in the public sector, because it intersects and affects people directly, making sure that those systems are safe and proper use for the people, I think becomes key. So those are two of the aspects, and maybe you can pick it up as well.
Yeah, thank you. Great insight, especially on awareness, capacity building. So I think that ICT CAM is a wonderful opportunity for that in the first place. Umoy, same questions. What are the perspectives on the priorities to use AI responsibly from the private sector?
Well, there are several key important priorities that we need to consider about. First and foremost is ethics, design and development. We need to make sure all AI design is fully human centricity. That includes human well-beings, no bias information, and transparency. Second thing, that would be about fair and inclusive implementation. We have to make sure that AI is available for everybody. It is fair contribution because it's all about data. Whatever you ask, you will only get information that that the contributor provided. So imagine that the data that AI capture from the source which provide wrong information, what will be about? What is the implication? So being fair and inclusive implementation play critical role. That have to be done by AI developer, researcher, and all AI contributor. Third is about accountability and governance. It has to be done by our government and development partner. We need to make sure everyone who use AI, develop AI, business for AI, have to hold full accountability of negativity which is provided by the development and application that they design. Governance play critical part in order to make sure everything is fully regulated. Otherwise, the society will become messy without full accountability and governance. Fourth, it's about sustainability. AI have to be fully integrated with SDG goals of UN, such as education, environment, that include climate change. Because at the end of the day, no matter development go far, the only question is how to make it sustain, whether it's sustain or not, whether it provide long-term impact to human society and the earth or not. So sustainability play critical role. Fifth, it's about risk mitigation and management. There are a lot of re-involvement of AI using AI development, AI research, public thing. If we don't have proper risk mitigation and management, that would be another issue. Sixth, it's about collaboration. We have to work together with international stakeholders, could be between country to country, could be between development partner, development agency, and private sector. Collaboration play critical role in order to make sure we catch up the trend. We know what to do. We learn the mistakes that people have done and avoid it in the future. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Last but not least, it's about education and awareness. Without proper informing, training, we will misuse of AI. We couldn't really use it effectively. It's more like we try to break the rule of use artificial intelligence responsibly. This is the issue. Another critical thing is learning and adoption. We need to learn, we need to understand what are challenges, what the keys, and how to adapt it in the future. This is several key which play critical role and become prioritized for AI responsibly.
Thank you for these insights, and also thank you for providing them in bullet points. I think you make it real easy for us to understand the key ideas. I have a follow-up question for both of you, and please don't hate me because we didn't plan this question in the meeting yesterday that we had to prepare for this. But you both talked about capacity building, so we can increase public awareness on artificial intelligence, on technology. You mentioned inclusive implementation of artificial intelligence. Based on your views, based on your experience, perspectives, which are the social groups that are more likely to be excluded from this process of adoption of artificial intelligence? Are we talking about ethno-religious minorities? Are we talking about sexual minorities? Who is more likely to be left out of this process? You want to go first, Sumoy?
Well, when we discuss about education, we discuss about inclusive, it all about nobody left behind. This is the theory. This is the commitment of development partner, the global discussion, the government, NGO, and everybody. I believe we all here think similar way. Yet, there are some groups are still need to be catch ups, like Dr. Marc mentioned, because some of them are planned to be included. However, due to their location, due to their education, due to their current status, they are not yet well formed. They are not yet well educated and included into the system. That could be the people like minority group in rural area, could be people who are currently in the process not in formal education. People are migrate to other country, so they could be the victim of all the risks, of all the issue, and things that might happen which caused by AI. But they are not really well included due to situation like I mentioned earlier. That is why we from private sector, we have been working together with development partner, with NGO, with international agency, try to issue, develop, training, and provide workshop to workers who are not currently at the school, to provide technology training to people in rural area to understand what are the risks of AI. We also provide training to SME owners who are not well educated in technology to really use AI in a way of ethic and responsible. This is the issue that have been facing so far, and we also provide a lot of idea together with some implementation like training, raising awareness, catch up, dialogue discussion to them. And the more that we do, I believe the inclusivity will be increased from time to time. Yeah.
I'll, to answer your question, Mark, the standard answer to your question is usually the historically marginalized groups in any country that face the brunt of this burden. But I'll try to get a bit more specific and tell you what does historically marginalized even mean, because we used to sometimes use these standard phrases without thinking them through. So for example, think of a system where you use an artificial intelligence-based systems to provide insights to rural farmers on what to cultivate. So if you go to some of these rural areas, I speak for my experience in our region as well, and if all of those farmers are not included in this system, it's usually the first people you will reach out to are the well-connected farmers who will be connected to the authorities, who will be connected to the other organizations. There will be groups of farmers who will not come into the system. They will not have these digital sensors installed, and they will not get these insights. That's one particular example. Another example would be, you see, I don't know how widespread in Cambodia or this region is, we see increasingly financial companies using artificial intelligence to determine the creditworthiness of people. So when it comes to smallholder farmers or small and medium scale entrepreneurs, if they don't have traditional markers of being creditworthy, and AI systems trained on historically similar data of what is credible and what is not credible without taking into account of the particular context, is very likely to make a person an underserved person from an underserved group as not being creditworthy. So you are bluntly and directly discriminated against. If you don't take that particular context into account. So making sure, like especially this is, I think, where like civil society organizations and international organizations have a role to play. Understanding where artificial intelligence has been deployed, what systems are being planned or already deployed, and thinking about societal implications and doing targeted capacity building and awareness raising, I think becomes key, because sometimes like these conversations can become a little bit abstract, like at a conceptual level, but like talking about these things in context of particular applications really helps.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks for this. And I was now thinking, how can I transition to the next question? But you actually made it very easy for me, because you both highlighted lots of different priorities, both in Cambodia, but also in the region. So the next question is more about the regulation of artificial intelligence, legal frameworks, which is something that you pointed out already. So how do you think that all these priorities that you have outlined for us should inform future AI laws in Cambodia, in the region? So maybe there are two questions here. Do we need an AI law, or maybe certain amendments to existing laws to make reference to artificial intelligence would be enough? And then the second question is, so how these priorities that you outlined should inform the legal frameworks?
For now, we haven't issued AI law officially. However, seeing priority, we can see that those are very important and can be potentially included in the law. First of all is human-centric and global alignment. We will have to design regulation that fully align very well to OECDs, the organization that work very hard on AI law and regulation, UN guiding principle, UNESCO, AI ethics and readiness. These are very good examples. So we can adapt and issue, especially create law which align to those global and international organizations. Secondly, it's about risk management and mitigation. It is very important to understand that law is fully created in order to mitigate all the risks. So it's one of the priorities which I mentioned earlier. By the way, I'm talking here not representing government. It's more about general and personal view from a person who have been working on policies, on technology implementation, education, and leading technology community for Cambodia and beyond for this 10 years. Third thing, it's all about data protection and privacy. It is very, very crucial because AI is all about data. Without fully regulated how to use data effectively, how to protect all consumer, personal, organization data, that would be another issue. That is why law will include this element. Education, innovation, and research will be potentially included as well, because those play critical role in order to make AI become fully developed and sustainable. We cannot go with AI without good data center, without technology support. We cannot go to AI without educator of AI. We cannot develop application without AI engineers, AI researchers. So those are the aspects that can work together with development partner, international stakeholder, private sector in order to stay innovate, educate, and inform. Another important thing is about governance and transparency. Without fully governance, without fully managed, that would be the issue. That is why this important element can be potentially well informed for AI's law and regulation together by including prioritized key, which is mentioned at the previous question.
To answer your question, Mark, so I'll start with like broadly the three approaches that I see governments around the world have taken when it comes to regulating AI. The first is your overarching sweeping regulations that you see out of the European Union. So thinking through every possible risk, taking a risk-based approach to regulating AI, thinking of what are the unpermissible, unacceptable risks, and completely prohibiting the use of AI in such applications. And then there's a hierarchy of risks. There are like high-risk applications which are permissible in certain circumstances. So this is broadly the approach that the countries in the European Union have taken, and they've put that into law. And there's another approach where you regulate AI broadly, but you regulate pieces of regulate AI with different aspects of AI. So for example, you see in China, there's a specific regulation on generative AI, there's specific regulation on recommendation systems on social media, YouTube, wherever you get recommended something, there's specific regulation on that targeted at individuals. So, and then there's like a third set of countries where you see they don't necessarily regulate AI, but they use existing laws and other legal instruments to make sure the implications of AI, the risks of AI are mitigated. So they'll make sure the data protection laws are in line with the implications for AI. They'll make sure like implications for children's rights, women's rights are being protected as you implement AI. So it's difficult to recommend like one specific pathway, but a place I would strongly recommend that almost every country start with is around data protection, because as you know, there's almost no AI without data, but you need to think through like it goes beyond traditional data protection, as in it has implications that you really need to carefully think through, because in normal data protection, you would see principles such as you should only retain the data for a specific amount of time. There's limitations on retention. But when you deploy AI systems using personal data, you want to make sure that the performance of these AI systems, say, take an example in health. Say you take patients' health records, digital health records, and you build a system where you can screen people for certain diseases. But if you have an AI model doing this, do you want to monitor the performance of this AI model for different groups, men versus women, for different ethnic groups? But if the performance of these groups are different, then you need to be able to monitor these over time. Sometimes you say you should only keep certain attributes of the data in storage, but like thinking through like the complications, what is even personal data is sometimes a question that you have to ask, and do you need personal data for AI is an interesting debate. But really thinking through like personal data protection as a starting point without making any recommendations per se is something I would start with, and maybe look at existing legal instruments, because the moment you keep introducing new laws, as you see from like the first presentations, there are inconsistencies, like deviations from best practices, especially if you have a brand new law, thinking through the existing laws and regulations, and then if you need an AI specific law down the line, yes, then you will have thought through some of the issues even to be able to draft a better AI specific law.
Okay, so to build on these regulatory processes and the need to develop frameworks to regulate the use of artificial intelligence, and this is the last question before we open the floor for Q&A, because I see so many people on their phones. My assumption is that you are typing the questions that you want to ask, so I want to give you, enough time so you can ask all of these questions. I wanted to touch upon the topic of collaboration and consultations with different stakeholders, with different actors, civil society organizations, the media sector, technology companies, private sector, broadly speaking. It is something that you both have emphasized in your interventions, the need for collaboration, the need for consultations. It is something that also Mr. Zach Lampel from ICNL mentioned in his intervention. Earlier, he said the need for real consultations. So the question is, for both of you, how can we make sure that the voices of all stakeholders, of all actors are heard in the process of developing these legal frameworks, regulatory frameworks. From my experience, I get to listen to a representative from government, and they say, yes, we are running several consultations with civil society sector, but then civil society sector tells me it's a one-off thing, it doesn't happen that often, so I don't really have that many opportunities to engage into the process. So I wanted to get your views on this, and what do you think that we can do to ensure that all actors have their say in this process?
Would like to go? Okay, thank you so much. Cambodia have very good initiative of PPP, public partnerships. This is something that governments open for working together with civil society, with private sectors, with other actors, including consulting, in order to build some things. To be included and to make sure the point of view of each actor can be consolidated for framework regulation and development. First of all, we will have this kind of dialogue discussion because everybody will join. People like us can contribute some idea. Maybe Bong here from MPTC can hear what we are talking and consider what to be input. This is a very good platform which our voice can be heard, our idea and good thing can be integrated with the process and laws development. Second thing is about having official discussion by getting experts from the industry. That could be educator, a specialist like Bong here, Bolina here, could be entrepreneur, could be student, could be everybody who use AI in order to see, because law is normally issue for the people to protect, to take care, to make sure everything goes smoothly. So everybody will be followed by the rule. That is why we need to consider, we need to discuss to make sure that the law which is issued will become effective practicing. Otherwise, law is something different from daily practicing. So nobody's gonna make it happen. This is the way that we can make law to be effective and being adopted by others. Third thing is provide awareness and education to the student and teacher, because they are the group of people who can share the idea, who can view and can contribute what is happening, what is existing, what is, can be integrated. Last but not least, I believe having discussion properly together with global stage, global and international stakeholders by hearing their view from what they are doing in the industry, from existing regulation, framework, which is already built, such as people from United Nations, people from UNESCO, people from other expertise, like the research which I joined is people from Oxford. They also have AI governance. So those people will provide a lot of input and idea of what is existing around the world, what is the current challenges of other developed countries are facing, and what can be eliminated and mitigate to align very well to Cambodia local context. That the idea and solution that experts and law practitioners can be heard, then we can develop framework become effectively and fully support to everybody benefits.
So I wanted to ask Merl the same question. From the perspective of civil society, what are the opportunities, but also the challenges, of course, of contributing and collaborating more in this co-creation process? Maybe you could share some concrete examples that help us understand all these challenges.
Yeah, so thank you for this question, and something that we in Sri Lanka are trying to really figure out for ourselves, because we are in a process of formulating a national AI strategy, and we are trying to think about what does it mean to do meaningful public consultations. I think the key word here is meaningful. Like you said, Mark, there's often public consultation is done, government puts out a document, gives the public about, I don't know, not pointing specific examples, but maybe give 1 week for people to send in written feedback, and that's the extent of public consultation and feedback that you get. I think forums like this, for example, are a great starting point, because like I said, engagement and consultation can only happen if people are already aware of what's at play, what's being discussed. So public awareness and awareness of the relevant stakeholder groups is critical. And then how do you think about meaningful engagement? I want to break it into two. So there's engagement at policy, regulation, and strategy level. Then there's engagement at individual AI system level. So at policy and regulation level, I think these are best practices that are not specific to AI, but having an adequate amount of time for people to send in written feedback is key. This seems fairly obvious, but you don't see this practice widely and properly. You give people an adequate amount of time to send in written submissions, and publicizing it that such a document or such a process on policy or regulation is at play is crucial. And doing targeted consultation with specific stakeholder groups is also key. Yes, sometimes these can be one-offs, but at least initially, if you identify different partners, different stakeholder groups, say if it's the startup community in a particular country, how do you make sure they are aware of these things and their feedback are incorporated? This is something actually we are concretely doing. We identify key stakeholder groups and reaching out to them and having close to small consultations where the engagement is meaningful. So we are doing a series of these, and this is where development partners and civil society partners can come in as well. So in Sri Lanka at least, so we are partnering with civil society organizations both to reach out and identify stakeholder groups and bring them into the room, and so that their voices are heard. And thirdly, and finally, moving away from the policy side of things, when you develop AI systems, it's important that people who are affected by these systems are first brought into the design of the system themselves. Sometimes this is not something even widely practiced even in the West, in the developed countries. So if you build an AI system on health, do you talk to the people who are going to be affected in deploying this system? Can you get their feedback? And once you deploy this system, is it working effectively? Can you have processes? So the continuous feedback from the users of AI systems is put in play. I don't think many countries, even in the developed world, are doing this perfectly, but there are better and worse use cases of it. So thinking about this public participation both at policy and strategy level, but also when you develop AI systems on the implications of these specific systems, you also need to have mechanisms to get effective feedback from the public and relevant stakeholder groups.
Okay, very interesting, especially because you broke it down into several different steps. And what I can see is that awareness is definitely one of the key issues, one of the key problems, because it has been really emphasized over and over. Right, so I think that we have about 10 to 15 minutes to open the floor for all of your questions that you have been typing on your phones over the last 15 minutes at least. If you don't know what to ask, just get ChatGPT, and you can ask ChatGPT responsibly. What can you ask for the two panelists? So maybe you can just tell us your name, the institution that you represent, if that's the case, and who is the question for, or maybe for both panelists. We have 10 minutes. Okay, good. Who is the brave one who wants to throw the first question? Just one at a time, please. Okay, we have one question in the front, microphone.
Hi everyone, just to wake up everyone, okay? My question, Well, first of all, thank you so much for such a great insights on AI. It's scary. And about ChatGPT, I hope your professors didn't hear that. All right? My question regarding the accountability of AI technologies, since Cambodia and Sri Lanka, I mean, there is still no legislation which would properly cover the AI operations. How would you recommend to put tech sector into the responsible use of AI in the countries, and how to make them accountable? Thank you.
Who is the question for? Both of them? Whoa.
So one of the things that we keep hearing in a Sri Lankan context is, again, it comes back, I mean, I'm repeating the same thing, but even in the private sector who develop some of these AI systems, sometimes there's gaps in understanding the ethical implications of the systems that they develop. So they'll develop recommendation systems on their various apps. So they don't have teams who like get together and talk about these issues. So awareness becomes key, but then again, like without repeating the same thing, I think one of the things that we can do concretely is having, if not binding regulation, sector-specific guidelines on the responsible use of AI in specific sectors. See, if it's in the financial sector, in understanding your local context and applications of AI, how do you, for various financial products that you have, maybe it's like creditworthiness, maybe it's like some other thing, but for those specific applications, what are the ethical implications, and how do you mitigate those things, and how do you design systems, how do you think through the impacts of your individual systems, having some guidelines around that, and you can facilitate maybe some of the training, and when it gets to regulation and penalties, it might take some time, but having these things like already laid out in form of software regulation, I think is really crucial, at least for a targeted few sectors, because without talking about these things in concrete, our experience is that like abstract discussions of AI ethics is, yes, like people will engage in a discussion like this, but when it comes to practice, that's really tough. And the second part of this is like having software applications almost that where you can translate some of the abstract principles into practice, and this is one of the more interesting examples that we found in doing the index. So Singapore has this I think government funded non-profit initiative called AI Verify. What they do is they take globally accepted AI principles and they translate that into systems of software code that can be monitored. Because within their workflows of software operations, I mean, it's not some abstract code. They consult these private companies who develop AI systems, and they have software systems in place. They can check for various ethical implications of AI. So helping the private sector adopt these things, yes, you can think about regulations, and if you can meaningfully regulate, that's like fantastic, because there's, for the private sector, I mean, let's be honest, sometimes it's binding regulation that like spur them into action. But even if you, before you get to that, having some guidance that can bridge the gap of concreteness and implementability within their individual systems is crucial.
To me, that would be all about 4 important pillars. First is humans. People have to be fully educated. Everybody, all users have to fully aware of implication, of benefit, and what will be the risky part. More than that, the developer, researcher, teacher, designer, this all about education in people. Second thing is regulation. Any initial area won't be sustained without fully regulate. Third thing is about infrastructure, like AI data centers, could be anything, technology that support and to be key enabler. Fourth thing is about joining together. Everybody come together in order to make things possible. By first comes up in mindset, activities, and honest feedback to keep continue and moving on. These are the key 4 elements important to support initial area which you mentioned earlier.
Okay, thank you. Do we have time for another question? 5 minutes or 5 questions? 5 minutes, okay. I don't think they have 5 questions. So. More questions from any of you? It can be a question, it can be a comment, an experience. I think I saw a hand, or maybe it's my illusion, yeah.
Hi, I'm Dixon from Futitsu. So we talk about responsibility, right? So what do you think about the new ISO standard that control the CO2 emission of AI system? Would it affect Cambodian entrepreneur so that they won't be able to make good use of the AI solution that maybe you will be developing? So.
I think, could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, so there's new ISO standard coming out that include the emission of CO2 by the AI system that the company may be using or developing. So what do you think about that kind of responsibility if you applied it into the Cambodian entrepreneur or Cambodian company?
Are you referring to carbon emissions and responsibility for AI on that particular initial area?
No, just ISO standard. Very simple. There's a new ISO standard that's coming out, or maybe already coming out, that force you to obey the CO2 emission under certain level, so that you won't be easily using AI for silly chatbot or silly things that tell you what to eat today. So what do you think about that kind of responsible AI regulations or standard?
He means like the use of AI, but not for unnecessary stuff. For example, what should I eat today, and what does it mean for sustainability, and yeah, something like that.
So let me repeat your question. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Are you referring to there are a lot of AI for standard like ISO, something like that? And then what is the responsibility? Is it your question? So sorry, I'm sorry, I couldn't get it.
The responsibility of the company, because if they apply for ISO standard, it means that they are not allowed to use AI for city development anymore. So no more chatbot to tell them what to do today or what to eat tomorrow. Do you think that will be applicable also in Cambodian market?
In which industry?
Any industry that use AI and who's applying for the ISO standard. Because sometimes if they want to do international business, they need to get approved by the ISO standard.
I see. So are you referring to any business that or processes that require ISO standard? What if they don't allow those business to use AI? Is it what you mean?
They do allow, but there's a control on the CO2 emission because it eats energy and the data center is very hot, and you're affecting the environment. So are you going to use those things to create some silly chatbot to tell you what to do or where to go, and then like not applying the ISO standard? So it's a question about responsibility. Yeah. How responsible your company or your industry will be in order to obey that. So I was wondering, what's your thinking about those kind of standards that might affect the business?
Well, let me repeat it again. You are talking about some company which is complied by ISO standard, and those company and organization are using AI in order to automate their operation, right?
Yeah.
And then what is your question?
No, the question is sometimes it's not just automation. Sometimes they just use it because they want to use AI.
Yeah.
And then it comes up that some people will say that, okay, let's just make some chatbot that tells you what to eat, where to go, like a travel agent. But instead of that, you can do it by yourself searching. So why use AI and eat up all the energy and then produce a lot of CO2? So because now the ISO standard now tells you that you're not supposed to do that anymore. And you're not supposed to use it to do some programming that normal engineer can do. So it affects how you use AI solution later on. So I want to know from Cambodian market point of view, what do you think? Is it okay that you want to do it to become more responsible, or you think that, okay, we don't care about the ISO, we just want to make money?
I see. So you really want to know and wonder whether like Cambodia just follow by the flow or have any other initiative about it. Commonly, AI development is done by Western country. So all the processes and response normally follow by their data and input. Especially the process and standard like ISO is already published. So most of AI which is used in those kind of operation will be automatically capture data from that. Whether Cambodia just follow it or not, it depends on which industry, on their own organization, on their strategies. If we have a huge team of researcher, developer, we obviously do something differently which benefit and make it sustainable. But in case it's just a small businesses like a flow which you mentioned earlier in the operation, that might be followed by the flow. By the way, we will have further discussion together more about it on offline.
Can I add quickly something? Yes, I want to echo what you just said. Is so when you think about chatbots, like the bulk of the environmental implications come from the training part of these large models. So what you do when you interact with a chatbot is something technically called inference, where like the model has already been trained and you ask a specific questions which does a prediction for you. So the environmental footprint of like using a chatbot in individual instances is like incomparably low for individual users. So even when you consider like an entire country, the usage might not be that high. So I don't know whether like the use of chatbots and the environmental implications and prohibiting based on that can be meaningfully justified. But there is a case maybe for collective lobbying as as a whole globally. Do you want to keep building these large models which now seem to be plateauing in terms of performance, but you see different companies building their own models? Do you still want to keep doing that? Is like an important global conversation when it comes to energy and sustainability. But when it comes to users, especially in developing countries, prohibiting them the use of chatbots because it has some minuscule impact on environment, I don't think it's justifiable.
Okay. Thank you, both of you. I was afraid that we were getting into a loop, but finally I think that we got really good answers from both of you. Unfortunately, the time is up for this session, but if you have more questions, anything that you want to ask to any of the two panelists, I definitely encourage you to approach them privately after this session during the coffee breaks, and they will be more than happy to answer to all of your questions, right? Okay. Okay, so I definitely encourage you to approach them. Finally, just a big round of applause for the two panelists and for all of you as well.
Thank you.
Okay, and I'll pass it back to our MCs, yeah?
Okay, thank you for the interesting and the good topic with the moderator and the speaker. So please give a big applause to our moderator and speaker.